So ignore my dirty garage, but I'm going to show you how to install aftermarket fog lights on the 2021 and up Ford Bronco utilizing the factory upfitter switches. So I've got the Morimoto triple pod fog light kit that I took off of my Ford Raptor. I'm going to install that on the Bronco now with some new brackets from JCR Offroad. And like I said, I'll show you how to do all the wiring too. So let's jump into it. So inside the truck, if you've optioned yours with the factory upfitter switches, you'll have these switches up on the overhead console here. Now I'm going to wire in my outside amber switches to the number 5 switch, which is going to be the blue and orange tracer wire that'll show you underneath the hood. And then I'm going to wire the white ones using the supplied Morimoto wiring harness on number 4. And that's going to be the brown wire that goes through underneath the hood. Looking at the Bronco from the front of the truck here, your factory upfitter wires are going to be located right in this back corner here. You can see I've already untaped them, but they're typically bent over and taped to the wiring harness, and they have these heat shrunk ends on them. Now, like I said, the brown wire is going to be my power, my switched power for the relay that comes with the Morimoto lights. So this will power 2 of the lights, and they'll have the outside ambers wired on their own power source. So this brown wire coming out from the wiring harness goes into this additional brown wire that I've ran up towards the front of the truck. So that comes along the hood cable to the front of the truck, where you have the relays from the Morimoto harness. From the harness, there is a ground wire which is attached to the negative terminal of the battery, and there is a positive wire which is secured underneath this cover to the distribution block on the positive terminal of the battery. So the wire that comes from the harness is this one right here. From the relays in the Morimoto harness, you have this kind of braided looking wire loom. Half of it is going to be distributed just down behind the driver's side headlight. The other half I have ran along on top of the radiator along the factory loom. Comes out here, it's a little more obvious to see. I've got it zip tied to the fan shroud, and then underneath the ducting for the airbox, and again over behind the passenger side headlight, where it will come down to the openings for the fog lights. Now there's plenty of excess wire here, so you have lots to work with. You can just kind of tuck the rest up and away. And like I said, I'm using this for 2 of the connectors. The third connector is not going to be utilized. However, if you were to wire all 3 of the 4-banger lights into one switch, you would utilize all 3 of these. So this one, I just put tape on the end. That's going to get tucked away, and these 2 will be plugged in to the light harness. On the underside of the HD modular bumper, you'll see these 3 Torx T40 bolts. You're going to need to remove the 3 on this side and the 3 on the opposite side. So you can either use a wrench and a socket with a T40 bit. Otherwise, if you have a small, like 1/4 inch impact, you can also use the T40 on there to speed up the process and remove those. Then you'll take the appropriate side bracket and insert it through the front of the bumper in the opening, and then reuse the factory hardware to secure the bracket in place. After reinstalling these with an impact driver, make sure you first start them by hand to avoid cross-threading. You can snug them up with this and always go back and torque it later. Now the bolt holes are also slotted, so if you want any adjustment, now's going to be the time to check to see how that's going to line up and get this situated the way you want it. Now that our bracket is installed, we can go ahead and start setting up the actual light pods themselves. And like I said, these are Morimoto 4-bangers. They were previously installed in my Raptor, that's why they're so dirty, but you'll notice specifically on these that each bracket is a little different height. So this is going to be our tallest bracket, followed by the middle bracket, and then the shortest bracket, and that'll kind of coincide with the opening here. You can see that you have a larger opening on this side, and it tapers down to a narrower opening on this side. So I'd recommend setting these up if you have multiple beam patterns to do your spot in the closest to the inside of the truck. You'll want to do either a flood or a combo beam. in the middle opening, and then your very last one here, I'm running amber, so I have an amber flood on the side, but if you had a white one, you could do a flood out there as well. So I'm going to get these apart and then slide them into the slotted openings in the JCR Offroad bracket. So since I'm mixing and matching brackets, new brackets with lights that I already had, the hardware that comes with the Morimoto lights is actually too big to fit through the holes on the bracket here. So I got to make a quick run to the hardware store to get some smaller bolts. But if you're utilizing the lights and the brackets that come with the Morimoto stuff, you obviously won't have a problem. Or any other manufacturer that supplies the brackets and lights together shouldn't be an issue for you. So then back in the garage with the new hardware, I'll just show you what this would look like off of the truck here. So we have our bolt. We're going to have a washer that will get put into the bracket that's on the light first. That will then get slid through in one of these openings, depending on where you're putting it to aim it. We then have another washer that goes on, followed by the lock nut to secure it in place. So this sits a little low right now just because it's not snugged up, but I had enough space to take the light and come around the back side and then hold it in place here with my fingers pressing up on the bolt. And then I was able to reach around from the back side still in this little gap. You can see where my hand is. There's space between the top of the bumper and where the nut is. So I was able to reach in there and then start threading on the nut from the top side here. Now there's not a ton of space up here to get this done, but I was able to fit a wrench on the top side to hold the nut in place. And then it really makes it easy if you have one of these ratcheting wrenches to get at the bottom bolt here. So just holding that top one in place and then getting this on our bottom bolt, we can start tightening it up. You'll then just repeat this process as you go across, and once your lights are in, it's as easy as plugging in the connectors, or if you aren't using a harness like this, obviously you'd have a black and a red wire coming from this side and a black and a red wire coming from the truck side, and you'll just use whatever waterproof connector you prefer. As we continue down the line here with the second one, it's actually easier to get the wrench in from the back side. So again, on top, you can just see the other end of my wrench sticking out there. So I'm holding it in place with my left hand, and then with my right hand, when I'm not holding the camera, I'm able to come at this bolt from the back side of this light. And if you didn't pick up on it, I'm installing from the inside most light first and working my way to the outside, since if you started on this end and put your lights in, it become more and more difficult to access things as you went in. This also allows you access to the screws on the side of the lights so that you can adjust the angle that they're pointing at as well. So everything's just kind of getting snug right now, not torqued down, so we can turn these things on, adjust them properly, and then come back for a final torque. So to demonstrate how you'd hook this up if you weren't using some sort of harness and if you're just wiring your lights in directly, like I'd mentioned before, these are that my outside lights are going to be on a separate switch. So you could do this for all of them if you wanted to. So the particular switch that I'm using leads to this blue and orange wire. You see it's a blue wire with an orange tracer. So what I'm going to end up doing is stripping this end off, and this will get connected to my red positive wire, which will go to the light. Now for demonstration purposes, I've got it on a short lead, and I'll put the light right up here so you can see it. The ground wire then, which would be coming from my light, will then get grounded. And an easy way to do it, you could ground it really anywhere, but they do have all these ground points up right where your positive wire is going to be connected. So I would just choose to put a ring terminal on this and mount it on one of these ground points here. Now on the opposite side where you have your fog light, if you have a connector that comes on it that you don't want to use, you want to use your own style connector, or you just want to direct wire it in, you can cut off the connector that it comes with, or maybe your light didn't even come with the connector, and that'll reveal the red wire and the black wire. Of course, the red wire is going to be our positive wire that will hook up inside underneath the hood, and then the black wire is going to hook up to our other black wire that's going to go to the ground. So I'll bring this over there after I put the connector on and show you what that looks like all connected up. So again, here's where we're looking. Now this is obviously not permanent. This is just set up short leads so you can see what we're looking at. So we have the blue wire with the orange tracer connected to our positive red wire. We have our black wire grounded. Those wires run up. They're connected to the connector, or you could choose to wire your lights directly. Again, this is just mocked up to show you. These obviously wouldn't be connected like this, but it runs through the connector, and then that's wired in to our light. So we can go inside and flip the switch, which is number 5. Turn that on, and then as you can see, that flips on our light here. So rather than having the little tiny short leads and having your light there, obviously your light will be here, and you can just run that power and ground wire however you see fit around the top side here, across, down, to line up then with the other lights that'll be installed. And if you're curious, switch number 1 is going to be the yellow wire. Switch number 2 is going to be the green and brown wire. Switch number 3 is going to be the purple and green wire. Switch number 4 is the brown wire. And switch number 5 is blue and orange wire. And switch number 6, which is hard to see, that's yellow and orange. In addition to those, there's 3 other wires that come out from the opposite side of the harness. The brown and white wire down there, which I already have connected. And then the white wire, and I guess I would call this purple with a gray tracer. It's really hard to see what the color shows up like. But this one actually runs down along and comes out, if you're looking at the front of the truck, right above the C. This is where it comes out. So if you wanted to wire something into the grill, like a lot of people are doing the 3 amber lights, you could do that there. Otherwise, hook up the other tracer, brings it around behind the passenger's side in the glove box there. There's other wires, so you can have one that pops out there at the accessory ready top if you're doing the light bar, or there's one that runs all the way and comes out in the back of the truck there too. So then with the third one in, which went in obviously the same way that the rest of them did, just from the bottom, tighten it up with the wrench on the back. That's what it looks like installed here. So then you have to repeat everything, obviously, on that side. So I'll button up the wiring, get everything realigned, tighten it down, and then we should be good to go. So that's how you install the JCR Offroad fog light bracket with the Morimoto 4 bangers in there, and how you can wire them up to run on 2 separate switches.